But what do you think about the fact that he's targeting his political enemies using executive orders and telling his Justice Department?
But we are focused on it, Sir Michael, and you just said, but Sir Michael,
can I answer?
But you haven't answered. But you have not answered.
I did answer. I just didn't answer the way you wanted me to answer. You don't get to dictate my comments to my response on this show.
Your comments are not directed to the issue. The very
yes, they were,
question
because
that
my
she
response
asked.
was
And furthermore,
the
Sir Michael,
focus should be
on this set, the last
hang on a second.
about this not being an alternative.
Tiffany, 1 second.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. All right, we got another heated debate coming out of CNN. This one is absolutely entertaining, and you're going to see Tiffany Cross right here get absolutely handled. So let's not waste any time and get straight into this video.
The executive order here, here's what it says about Chris Krebs. Krebs, through CISA, falsely and baselessly denied that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. That is in a presidential executive order, almost as if Bigfoot was real. What is going on?
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be with you. I think this is probably one of the most dangerous things that we've seen from him. And we've seen a lot of craziness, but this is now taking the department and completely weaponizing against two people who just disagreed with him. One who told the truth and was involved as a witness in the congressional inquiry, and then somebody else who has said some things about him. The problem is we're back to now what he complained about throughout the campaign and his presidency, and that was that the Justice Department had somehow been weaponized. And now you see him essentially given a mandate and a directive by way of this presidential order to the department to move forward.
He signed 2 executive orders ordering investigations, weaponizing his Justice Department against people who just disagree with him. How do you justify that?
I mean, look, politically, you know, my advice to the president on this one would be continue to focus on strengthening the economy. You got to figure out a way to bring down cost. Keep doing what you're doing as it pertains to immigration. We need to increase chip manufacturing within the United States. There are several political things that I think that he needs to do.
All right, hold on. Okay.
So
all right, Chair Michael, I get it. Yes, he should focus on the economy.
Yeah, he should.
But what do you think about the fact that he's targeting his political enemies using executive orders and telling his Justice Department?
But we are focused on it, Sir Michael, and you just said, but Sir Michael,
can I answer?
Well, you haven't answered. But you have not answered.
I did answer. I just didn't answer the way you wanted me to answer. You don't get to dictate my comments to my response on this show.
Your comments are not directed to the issue. The very
yes, they were,
question
because
that
my
she
response
asked.
was
And furthermore,
the
Sir Michael,
focus should be
on a second.
Hang on a second. About this not being an alternative.
Tiffany, 1 second.
Go ahead, Tiffany. Go ahead.
I mean, listen, Chair Michael, you're a friend of the show. You're my friend. Please answer the question.
I answer the question the way I want.
No,
nobody's going to dictate the way I answer questions on this show. You may not like the way I answered the question, but I gave an answer. No, I don't like that. We're not going to do dictating reply the way I want you to reply. Then just don't ask me a question if you don't like my response. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Chair Michael, you don't get to.
Do we not live in a democracy now? I mean, we talked a lot about a democracy tonight.
You don't get to just change the subject to avoid having to say something that might be perceived as negative about Donald Trump.
No, Abby, you just didn't like my answer to your question.
It seems like. If you were a politician, a regular person on the street would say, well, that sounds like spin to me.
No, you asked a question.
Because it does sound
and
like
my
spin.
response to your question was, instead of doing this, the president should be focused on X, Y, and Z.
That
is an answer to the question.
When I said this is why it's so dangerous, and this is an example of why it's so dangerous, and that is because nobody wants to speak out against it. You know, we've been waiting for Republicans, whether it be in Congress or wherever they are, to come up and actually say that we're not going to let Trump's power go unchecked. And when he does something wrong, something illegal, something outside the bounds of the history and the department, they sit quiet.
Is it illegal? Do you believe what he did is illegal?
Absolutely.
Why is it illegal?
If you read the Justice Department manual, one of the things it talks about, actually there's a whole section on whether or not the White House can have direction or communication for a prosecution. That's in there today. Frankly, I'm surprised they didn't scrub it yet, but it's actually in there. They're not allowed to do that. The reason is because you have to keep the department to be completely nonpartisan. That's the charging decision.
You don't think that the head of the executive branch can have law enforcement priorities?
I think when you call and say go after a political enemy, that's illegal and wrong. And I think and you know, the tide always turns and the pendulum swings here. When the Democrats are back in the White House, I imagine the Republicans are going to scream bloody murder if the president, the Democratic president, calls the department and says, go after, let's go after the Trump kids and see what happens.
I mean, I'm curious, like, Are you suggesting that you don't think that it's wrong to go after political enemies?
Here's what I think. I think the security clearance, let me just address the order.
I'm going to have to do the same thing I just did to Shermichael, in fairness to my friend over there. Because my question to you was, do you think that it is right or wrong to go after, for the president to use the Justice Department to go after his political enemies?
I think it is fine for the president to express law enforcement priorities. I think that the Department of Justice should exercise the same judgment that they would exercise on anyone else as it relates to whether someone should be criminally investigated. But here's what I believe about the order in total. The security clearances, fine. There's far too many people with security clearances. I don't have a problem when they take them away. Reviewing access and dissemination of information, perfectly fine, because we do know some oversteps occurred. Looking at whether the government was involved in censorship, which we know they were, perfectly fine. But I think
he's talking about censorship of his lie. He's
well, there were
alleging.
other issues.
Hold on,
issues
Scott.
related to COVID.
He is alleging that CISA censored his lie that the election was stolen. It is not true that the election was stolen. Chris Krebs told the truth, and now he's being targeted by the government with an executive order.
Right.
I guess it shouldn't be. I don't think it should be hard to just say, this is not what the government should be doing. This is not what the president should be doing, because if the shoe, to Michael's point, were on the other foot, as you claimed that it was, you thought that was a huge scandal.
Again, I think the I think the president should be able to express his views about these issues, but I think the Department of Justice ought to exercise the same judgment that it would use on any other kind of investigation. Now, what these guys did and whether it deserves a criminal investigation, I don't know. You're a lawyer, I'm not, but I do know this. That, like in the case of Miles Taylor, was working in the government anonymously, obviously disseminating information publicly that he should not have been doing.
Like what?
Well, I mean, he was anonymously writing pieces for the New York Times and stating publicly that he was trying to undermine the government of the United States that he was supposedly working for.
What did he disseminate that he was legally not allowed to disseminate?
Great thing to find out. He was a high-ranking position at the Department of Homeland Security. What did he
wrote an op-ed.
What did he have access to?
He wrote an op-ed.
What did he disseminate to people you don't know about?
He wrote an op-ed and he wrote a book. So what's the allegation?
I think anybody who held a high-ranking position in a Homeland Security department like he did, we know what they did publicly. I'd love to know what he did privately.
They're not allowed to talk about their experiences when they leave government? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm saying that he clearly used his position to try to undermine the sitting president of the United States when he had it. I know what he did publicly now. I don't know what he did privately.
Okay,
I think it's worthy of investigation.
Wait a minute. What do they mean about weaponizing the Justice Department to go after their political opponents? Where were they the last 4 years before Donald Trump became president? I don't remember them having this type of conversation when Joe Biden and his Justice Department went after Donald Trump and weaponized the justice system. People like Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, what's her name? The lady from Atlanta, right? The one that's sleeping around with her coworker. Where were these people? This is hilarious. Weaponizing the Justice Department to go after your political opponents is y'all's concern now? Anyway, if you enjoyed this video so far, please hit the like button, guys. It really, really helps the channel out. And of course, if you are brand new, consider hitting subscribe. Let's get back into the video.
One of the things that's happened is that the United States has lost, like, is it $1 trillion or $11 trillion since this all began? Maybe regained a little bit of it, but has lost all of that, and not a single trade deal has been struck.
No, and the reason why they haven't been struck is because lowering the headline tariff number is the easy bit. The 90 days is now going to be dealing really with the non-tariff barriers, the rules on procurement, who can own what this and that and the other. It's difficult stuff. It's very, very difficult. But I have a question, and I'd like to address it to my dear and good friend, Mr. Jennings. This is it. Today, the president gave a 90-day moratorium. Why did he not last week, when he did his show and tell with his list, say then, this is going to be the tariffs in 90 days. Now send your best people to Washington to negotiate with me over the next 90 days. Instead, he took us over the cliff and has now pulled us back up again, and he's left chaos in his way.
It is a great question,
I think the answer that you would get from the administration is doing it this way gave him maximum leverage. It showed people that he was serious, and it showed people that this isn't for show, that if you don't deal with us, we are willing to act here. But I think the answer is leverage, simply leverage, and now he's going to be able to deal with all these other countries and continue to isolate the bad actor, which is China.
I don't think he's shown people that he's serious. I think he's shown people that he's crazy, he's mercurial. Honestly, if it was Kamala Harris behaving this way, they'd call her hormonal and hysterical, right? Look.
Well, you'd have to get elected to be.
But, well, yes, and if she had been elected, and if Hillary Clinton had been elected, if any woman had been elected and been acting this way, they'd say it was menopause.
She would have never stood up to China, so I think this is a mood issue, right?
No, it's not a mood issue because his craziness and the way that he acts, and this is not in a vacuum, because it's not just the tariffs. It's the first thing he did was attack Panama, Greenland, Denmark, Canada, allies, abandon Ukraine, cozy up to Russia. It's been one thing to after another. But this is also very, very similar to what Doge has been doing, where they go in with a sledgehammer when everybody talks about needing a scalpel. With these tariffs, again, went in with a sledgehammer, caused fear, destruction, distrust, when it could have been done with a scalpel in a strategic way. That's just not the way he operates.
Even the administration was not on the same page. I mean, it was the narrative around these tariffs has changed so many times. First, it was, oh, it's punitive because of Mexico and Canada and fentanyl, which, by the way, a majority of the fentanyl crossing the border is from American citizens. Then it was, you know, we're going to level the playing field, and this is how we're going to pay for tax cuts. It does not show that he was serious. It shows that he was grossly unserious. And so, yet again, on the heels of a signal group chat and now tariffs, we look like a national embarrassment.
Well, let me just play one thing. Let me play one thing to Tiffany's point. I mean, Donald Trump and Scott Bessent have not been on the same page about this. Bessent has been trying to paint this as a pretty rosy picture, saying, you know, the bond markets had nothing to do with it, and the way that the market responded had nothing to do with it. Trump said the opposite. Listen to this.
Watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
How much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening with the bonds? Is China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today.
It's kind of a casualty of being in Trump's cabinet that he will contradict you just a few minutes after you say something. But it had everything to do with the bond market. According to all available reporting, they went to the president and said, Mr. President, all the lights are flashing red right now. We have to change course. And he did, perhaps.
Well, he did. And I think it's important for the president to adhere to the advice of his advisors. These are complicated matters. The market, for the most part, likes stability and continuity. We all understand that. We talked about this the other day. With that said, I think the end result needs to be, can we level set with many of our trading partners and decrease the trade deficits that ultimately exist? If we can do that, I think that's a win. As it pertains to corporate America, I think once we pass corporate tax cuts or renew the Trump tax cuts, I think we'll see a significant amount of that wealth return in the next couple of weeks or 2-3 months. I think corporate America will be perfectly fine, and then we'll move on. The focus does need to be on China. I mean, Scott's right. They steal our IP and sell it back to us. I don't know any country in the world who would give their ideas away for free and then buy the ideas back. We have to figure out a way to protect American businesses and entrepreneurs, and we haven't figured that out in the past couple of years now. So I think there's some benefit to the American people and businesses by focusing the attention on China.
I think everybody agrees with that. The problem is China's not playing ball. They're just ratcheting up the escalation.
But they're going to have to, though, Abby. We are their number one trading partner. There's their number one trading partner.
No. There's no have to in this.
Right.
Because let's start looking at trade flows. I wish I had a map or a diagram. You're going to start seeing South-South trade. You're going to see trade avoiding the United States.
Yeah,
let's remember.
Richard, can I just have you explain very briefly what South-South trade means for people who are, you said it a few times.
Well, it's basically anything, it doesn't go through the Northern Hemisphere. It's southern hemispheric countries trading with each other, avoiding Northern Hemispheric, and that would include the EU with its regulations, and the United States. We're seeing huge amounts of Africa to Central and Latin America, Australasia, Asian, ASEAN trade. Can I just also have a reality check here? The sword of Damocles, if you will, has been lifted again and is now hanging over on the big stuff. But we still have steel and aluminium, or aluminum, as you insist on saying, Stephen aluminium tariffs.
We're in America, Richard Quest.
We still have auto tariffs, 25%. We've still got 125% on China. And we have tripled, or he has tripled, the average tariff overall to 10%, which is livable. I'll give you that, Scott. It's livable, 10%. But it's still a tripling of where it was just a couple of weeks ago.
But Richard, how do you account for the fact that China has seen a significant decrease in their economic growth throughout fiscal year 2024 compared to 2023, and how that has to factor into the considerations of Xi Jinping moving forward and trying to bridge some type of a trade deal with the United States?
If Xi Jinping was standing for Beijing North in an election, it would, but it doesn't.
Different kind of system. Effectively, no politics, Cher Michael. I think this is an important point. China, Xi Jinping does not have to deal with politics in the way that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have to deal with it. That is a fundamental difference in our systems. So they can withstand a lot of pain. How concerned are you about the chain of events here? Donald Trump, Truth Socialing at 9:37 a.m. This is a great time to buy DJT, which is the ticker for his company. And then later in the afternoon, lifting the pause and everything skyrockets. There was a lot of other activity going on in the markets that people are concerned about. What do you think?
We know from what we've heard today that there was a meeting this morning between Beset, Lutnick and the president. The president admitted this in the Oval Office when he said they talked about it. We wrote the statement. It was a beautiful thing. It came from the heart. And then you get this tweet, or whatever you want to call it, on social, to tell people this is a good time to buy, whether it's DJT as a ticker or DJT as in his initials, which he doesn't use very often, by the way, in his posts. If to say this is a good time to buy and then take a decision that you pretty much know is going to rally the market, I'm not going to finish that sentence.
I mean, what is it? Tinkering with the markets?
I hope not.
Allowing for insider, because anybody that was privy to that conversation or knew what was happening could have taken that information and done something with it.
Anybody who read that tweet, that social, and had an inkling of what he might do or anything like that, it's just, you don't do it. It's as simple as that. You don't tell people now is a good time to buy if you are the person who is about to take a decision that is going to make the market rally.
Why is he doing things like this when most presidents know that they have the power to move markets? They tread carefully. Trump is not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, he is radically transparent. Everything that is on his mind, he tends to either put out in front of the press in the Oval Office or out on his social media. I don't think today's commentary is any different than he operates on any other day. And I think it's been true for time immemorial that when a president speaks, however they speak, markets do move. And it's not the first time it's ever happened.
Do you think it's appropriate for the President of the United States, knowing he's about to take a decision that is going to buoy the market, to actually put out a social posting saying, now is a good time to buy? And anybody who might know his thinking on these issues might say, hey, I hope he's going to do so. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Tiffany?
But because he's doing something unethical and he's doing it before the American people, that doesn't make it right. He doesn't get to wear that as a badge of honor. I also get nervous, respectfully, when we talk about the economy in terms of the market, because I think about the average person at home who is going to the grocery store, figuring out how to pay their mortgage every day. And the economy for them is not whether or not to buy a stock that day. It is how much can I afford to spend at the grocery store. And what this has done is not that these tariffs are going to eventually hit people. They already have. Like, prices have already taken a toll on a lot of people. I did a show today and we were talking about people were paying $60 and $70 more for items and products before these tariffs have come to be. That is what the economy is. Most voters are not carrying stock prices into the voting booth. And so for Donald Trump, the president of the United States, if any other elected official had done this on the other side of the Republican aisle, Scott, I can't imagine that you would be sitting here defending that. Sure, Michael, I can't imagine you would be defending that if a Democratic president was tweeting about now is a great time to participate in the stock market.
I haven't defended what Richard was just talking about, but
you do think it's inappropriate.
But I do want to go back to the idea of possibly going into a recession, Richard, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I mean, we saw several recessionary factors in the previous administration, Fed hikes, slower growth, et cetera, and we were able to avoid it then. We haven't really seen economic activity constrict thus far. We'll have to see what consumer confidence and spending ultimately is as we go through Q2 of this year. But wouldn't you say it's at least a little premature to be saying we're getting ready to face a recession? And if not, I want to know why, because I don't see the factors there.
I know we've got to rush, but because the dislocation is too great, the chaos is too much, and eventually it overwhelms the system. It's back to my cake rising.
I think
we got to go.
Well, I think he watched
flavor.
Diamond on TV, but I also think he was hearing from private advisors. I think he was hearing from members of Congress, who, by the way, he's negotiating with over, his reconciliation package right now. I think a lot of advice was coming in that led into the day's activities. And, if renegotiating with our allies over a 90-day period is the net result of this, isn't that a good thing?
His own administration is not even on the same page. Land, you cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonized attitude.
I have never, ever said we're going to go to Greenland and, quote, colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
If you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you do.
What you lack in a legitimate point, you make up for in personal insults.
I don't. You
personal insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you want to engage in personal insults,
we're not
if I were
isolated.
you, I would reserve that for your party, who is increasingly isolated. This our position
outside of the United States.
Reality that we are dependent on so many things to come out of our biggest adversary in the world. They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we
they've got rare earth minerals and you don't.
They're the enemy.
Right. But listen, but like it or not, sure, Michael, they are our biggest trading partner. And if we were to manufacture iPhones here, iPhones would cost $3,500. The American people are not going to tolerate that. We have one of the highest standards of working conditions here. I don't think that we can say, forget you, China. They
so
literally.
Okay. So you're okay. Hold on, sure, Michael. So you're okay. You're okay if we continue to put our own economic and national security future in the hands of our biggest enemy, because effectively they use slave labor to build stuff, and that makes it better for us. That is terrible.
I am 100% not okay with that, but I'm dealing in the reality of what is.
Oh my God, that was absolutely entertaining. I hope you guys found that as entertaining as I did. Now, Tiffany Cross is sitting there and acting as if like Scott Jennings came after her and trying to attack her personally is insane. It's borderline. Like, she needs to be admitted to like an insane asylum. You literally came after him and told him that his opinions are irrelevant. And when he backfired and told you that your opinions are irrelevant and also used evidence to validate his point, you got mad because what he said actually was more legitimate than what you said for two reasons. One, CNN has its best ratings when Scott Jennings is on the show. Anytime that Scott Jennings is not making an appearance on Abby Phillips' show, her rating is dog shit. So his opinions are extremely relevant. How about we do a test? How about Scott Jennings gives his seat to you, and let's see how the ratings do if he was to depart, and see who is more relevant than you are, right? Because he's right. You got fired because not only is your opinions irrelevant, but you're also a race hustler. That's what you're known for. You have no credibility. That's really what it is. You have zero credibility. Nobody trusts what you say. You're just a race hustler and a race grifter. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this debate. I thought it was highly entertaining. Let's talk about it in the comment section. Leave your opinions down below. And of course, if you are brand new, consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.